Hi there, welcome back to the Transfer Show. We're joined by sports lawyer Daniel G from Sheridan's. Daniel, thanks so much for joining us. We have to start with the big news of the day, the Erling Haaland contract, 9.5 years. What's your reaction to it, first of all, and what kind of work you'd know would have had to have gone into getting it over the line?
Well, I think, as you guys have rightly said, unprecedented, outlier, trendsetter, all of those sort of sound bites you've already touched on. I think you're exactly right. I think it's likely this is going to be one of the biggest deals in Premier League history. It's almost certainly one of the longest renewals ever until he's 34 years old. The thing that sprung to mind was, I wonder whether we're actually seeing a bit more of the Americanisation of football. We saw deals like Patrick Mahomes with Kansas City in the middle of COVID. You know, his deal was worth $450 million over a 10-year period or otherwise. I just wonder whether with growing American ownership in the Premier League as well, Chelsea being the trendsetters of those longer deals as well, we're actually getting to the stages now where the biggest, most high-profile players are being tied down to very long deals.
So that would explain, Daniel, that kind of long-term contract. Anything to do with profit and sustainability as well alongside that?
Well, PSR, and there's new squad cost controls coming in next season as well. PSR is limited effectively to the 5-year amortization. So to a degree, the deal, at least for PSR calculations, can only be amortized, i.e. over the length of the contract being 5 years. But there's lots of other PSR transfer trends. I'm sure we'll go into those in a little bit of detail as well, but I don't want to preempt anything you have to say.
Can we get into an insight into a Premier League contract? We know about weekly wage, appearance, goal bonuses, but what other clauses and bonuses could be included?
Where can I start? I think, again, one of these general ideas is people think there's a lot of goal bonuses or clean sheet bonuses, and I think at the real highest level, there is definitely a move towards collective incentives. So whereas before it might have been goal bonus, now a lot of the big clubs with the top players might have a very good basic salary, but what we're talking about is performance related. Has the player appeared substantively? Has the team won? And has the player appeared and the team won and contributed to success? If it's avoiding relegation, if it's Champions League qualification, if it's winning the Premier League, and all of those things. Now, the other things that could come into it, and we'll talk about it, is release clauses, loyalty bonuses, even work permit application paperwork that you have to do. All of those things come into the general mix. And when we're talking about such deals of substantive value now, that's the type of level of detail that's required.
Daniel, just more generally, in your role, how do you actually become involved in a transfer deal? Are you taken on by the club, by the player, the representative of the club, or the player?
Yeah, it's on the whole, I will be helping the player and his or her agent. And so, you know, you hear a lot of the time the need for everyone to get the best value in the deal, to be able to have a tough negotiation. A lot of the time, deals come out of the blue because things happen, players get injured, players come into form, out of form, new manager or otherwise. But I think the basic position is, you know, I'll have agents on WhatsApp, on phone calls, on emails. And as glamorous as it sounds, a lot of my work really is in my office in Soho rather than the training grounds and the stadiums of the Premier League clubs.
Just on this window, how busy have you been? And what have you and your firm worked on, and what has been the biggest challenge?
Well, there's been lots. We've done some manager deals. There's been a number of Premier League deals that we've done already. I always think the challenge, and you guys articulate it brilliantly throughout the windows, is value. There has to be a willing buyer and seller. The clubs have to be able to agree those numbers. There's a value attached to the player, an opportunity cost for going one player against the other. And all of those negotiations are happening in real time with multiple stakeholders involved. And, you know, it's what's a fixed amount, what's variable, what's the basic wage going to be, what are the contingency payments going to be? All of that comes into the mix.
Daniel, you worked on a huge deal a couple of months ago, Declan Rice, of course, from West Ham to Arsenal. For a deal like that, how far along does that get before you get involved?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. I mean, it was brilliant to work on that deal. I think ultimately the more complex and technical deal tends to involve me at an earlier stage. And there can be lots of moving parts, Premier League negotiators, like we were talking about before, and I know you've got people coming in afterwards, sporting directors, chairman, chief executives, agents, buying, selling club. everybody gets involved, and especially with these higher profile deals and the astronomical numbers, it takes a lot of people to be able to get these things over the line.
Just finally, Daniel, if you could just give us in about 30 seconds the craziest deal you've been involved in, perhaps one where, come on, hurry up, we're up against the clock here.
Well, you guys are really good where you have to explain the deal sheet, for example, on deadline day. Yeah. That comes along all the time. You know, it's not just something that just so happens. But, you know, I like to always think about Stefan Schwarz's contract where he had back in the day in Sunderland, where an eagle-eyed club secretary read in an interview that he wanted to go into space. So they actually had to draft, apparently, a no going into space clause for Stefan Schwarz back in the day. Now, whether that's an urban myth or not, I like to think that a good lawyer had to deal with that.
Well, let me tell you, Daniel, you've been from another planet.
Set you up perfectly.
Thank you very much.